Well, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the March 2nd Dublin City Council meeting. Greg, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Okay, we have some special recognitions and presentations this evening. The first one, we're looking for the man in the orange hat in the back of the room, Stephen White. If you would please come forward, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello.
Pride of Dublin right there.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, thank you, City Council, Mayor, for allowing me to be here today to help deliver some really exciting.
Jenny's you can either take the microphone or stand at the microphone, whichever is best for you. There's a mic right there if you want to be mobile.
Oh, perfect. Got to be mobile.
Okay.
Fantastic. Can everyone hear me? All right, awesome. So I'm here today to help make an amazing announcement here for not only the city of Dublin, but all of Central Ohio and our state. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here. My name is Stephen White. I am one of the vice presidents at COSI, the Center of Science and Industry, which, by the way, last week was voted the #1 science center in the entire nation. How about that? So thank you. So we are really excited, and part of that, #1, does not come without the power of partnerships. And one of the things we are super excited about is the partnership with the City of Dublin and all the leadership that particularly City Council and Mayor that you have shown for the residents of City of Dublin to focus on what we call STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And we really appreciate the incredible partnership that you've shown. So, we're here to make an announcement, and it's regarding announcing the Grand Marshal of the upcoming 2020 COSI Science Festival. A little bit of some background. The COSI Science Festival is Ohio's largest STEM event in our state's history. So it is about engaging, inspiring, and transforming lives and communities by being the best partner in science, technology, and industry learning. And so it's a 4-day event that takes place from May 6th through the 9th. Where we immerse the entire community, including the City of Dublin, around science and technology. So we'll impact over 50,000 people together in delivering free STEM programs to our community that's going to inspire the next generation of workforce around STEM education. It's really that key of workforce and bridging the skills gap that we have here in Central Ohio, and the Science Festival is enabling us to do that. So as part of that, we partner with the great City of Dublin. By the way, I'm a resident here, so thank you so much for your leadership. And so we partner with the City of Dublin, and we want to thank not only the City of Dublin, but particularly Colleen, Sarah, Lindsay, others who are part of, and Sue, who are part of the city staff here in the City of Dublin, who have really taken a leadership role in creating these amazing events for the City of Dublin. So we applaud their efforts and thank them for their hard work. But we're here to make the announcement of what we call a STEM star. This is an individual who is somebody who is doing amazing things, a champion of STEM in our community. And we lift that person up as the Grand Marshal of the Science Festival. And we're going to highlight their story to all the residents across Central Ohio. And to make the announcement, I'm not going to announce who that person is in a moment, but I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor to make the announcement of who the Grand Marshal is for the City of Dublin, and I know that there's a proclamation that you have here that you want to present.
Yes, well, we have a lot of super talented staff, and we are really fortunate that the people that represent Dublin, we don't just represent our citizens in this community, we really take great pride in representing regionally, nationally, and globally as well. And so our very own Megan O'Callahan has been chosen to be this Grand Marshal.
All right, Yay! Congratulations, Megan. Come around.
You'll come forward, I'll come down there and we'll read the proclamation.
Fantastic.
Okay. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas City of Dublin Deputy City Manager, Chief Operating Officer Megan O'Callahan has been named 2020 COSI STEM Star and will represent the City of Dublin as a Grand Marshal for the 2020 COSI Science Festival, which takes place May 6th through the 9th, 2020. And whereas the COSI STEM Star Award recognizes individuals who are making an impact in the fields of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and art. Whereas Megan was nominated for her involvement, oversight, and management of Dublin's pedestrian and bicycle bridge over the Sauter River, which will open March 13th, 2020. Mark your calendars. And whereas featuring a sleek main tower and suspension design with an S-shaped bridge deck and special lighting features, the bridge is a remarkable engineering achievement. And whereas a graduate from The Ohio State University with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, Megan earned her Juris Doctorate from Capital University Law School, graduating magna cum laude. What else? And whereas Megan is a registered professional engineer and an attorney in the state of Ohio, an engineer and an attorney in the state of Ohio, a member of the American Public Works Association and the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, and serves on the advisory board for The Ohio State University Department of Civil, Environmental, and Geodetic. See, she's far more educated than I am, so she can help me read too. Engineering, and whereas Ohio Governor Mike DeWine appointed Megan to the State Board of Registration for Professional Engineers and Surveyors. Now, therefore, I, Chris Ambrose Grooms, Mayor of the City of Dublin, do hereby congratulate Megan O'Callahan in recognition of her outstanding contributions and advocacy in the areas of science, technology, engineering, math, and art in our community on this second day of March 2020.
So Megan, we are going to present you, in addition to that amazing proclamation, this 3D printed trophy with your name on it. So congratulations again. Would you like to say a few words? We want to just thank you so much. The fact that we can lift up your story and highlight to young folks what engineering that can do and career paths is really incredible. You're an inspiration to our community, and COSI is so proud to lift up your story.
Thank you very much. It has really been an honor to have any part in this project. This project is an amazing bridge. It's extraordinarily complicated, from the suspension design to the S-curve deck to the main tower. What's remarkable about this project, though, is the team that built it. From the design team, T.Y. Lin, all the way through the contractor, who we're going to be discussing next. It's been a remarkable team effort, so I'd like to thank the entire team. There have been a lot of extraordinarily talented people that have touched this bridge over the past 5 years, so I'd just like to thank the entire team. And I'd also like to thank COSI. I love taking my kids to COSI. It's fun. It's great seeing COSI on wheels out in the community, and we'll do whatever we can to lift this project and this bridge up to encourage others to take an interest in STEAM or STEM. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Get another round of applause. Now, this would not be a COSI event without some kind of experiment. So are you ready? All right. I'm going to invite my colleague, Josh Sarver, and as he's coming up and getting ready, he is wearing safety glasses. That's right. We're going to have to take a bunch of steps back. I'm preparing you. No, I'm just kidding.
I think they want to get a photo.
Oh, we want to do a photo first. Okay, let's do a photo really quickly. Josh, do you want to jump in here? As she's doing that, we're really excited. Josh is going to walk you through this fun experiment, but we are really excited about the bridge, by the way. This is a feat of engineering that we're super excited at COSI to highlight to the community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Get ready. Where's the gloves, the goggles?
So actually, I'm going to need everyone's help. You want to come on in here? Right on back here. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. So I figured, what's the coolest thing that I could bring here from COSI? And the coolest thing we have is 328 degrees below zero. It's liquid nitrogen, hence the glasses and the gloves for a little bit of protection. But I'm going to need your help, too, to create what we call a cloud, the same clouds that you would see in the sky. Clouds are made up of three things: cold, which I have back over here in liquid nitrogen, but then also a little bit of dust. So we're going to need to kick up some dust here. So go ahead and stomp your feet a little bit for me. Stomp those feet. Excellent. Very good. So now we got a little dust in the air. The next thing we need is a little bit of moisture, warm moisture in the air. So everyone take a deep breath and let it out. now that we have all that hot air and moisture in the room and a little bit of dust, when I can bring that together with a little bit of cold from the liquid nitrogen, we'll give this back to Stephen.
Right.
So if you guys can help me out with a little bit of a countdown, starting at
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! All right.
If you take a deep breath, you can take a little bit of COSI home with you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys so much. Congratulations, Megan. Thank you so much, Mayor, City Council. We really appreciate it. Congratulations.
Megan, I will just,
Thank you so much.
so nice to see you.
Yeah.
I will just stay here with Megan. Megan has a presentation. Are you going to make from over there?
Yeah.
Well, okay. That was the coolest thing we're going to do all night. So if you came for the highlight reel, you can go ahead and leave because it's all downhill from there. But Megan is now going to make a presentation regarding the contractor recognition for the pedestrian bridge.
Yes, so I mentioned that this bridge project has been a tremendous team effort, and I wanted to lift up the entire team, and that includes Kokosing Construction. Kokosing has been involved in the project since midway through design, and during design, they provide tremendous insight and expertise and consultation that helped us in partnership with our designer complete the plans. And then they've done a wonderful job building the project. They've taken great pride in the work that they've done. They've done a great job partnering with Dublin and Dublin staff. We've worked through a lot of complex questions and issues during construction, and they've hung in there all along the way and helped us work through all of those issues. So they've been awesome partners. So we invited a few of the team members here. These team members with Kokosing have been on site since day one of construction. And like I said, they've been great to work with. It's been amazing to watch them do their work. They're very skilled, very talented. They've had great contributions into the construction. So with that, I'd like to invite each of the team members up so we can publicly thank them. And with us here this evening, we have Scott Heater, who has been a key laborer, so come on up. We have Matt Duncan, who has been a crane operator from day one. Thank you. We have Matt Michael, who was the ironworker superintendent. We have Kyle Stalder, who's been the field engineer. Nick Enoch, the project superintendent. And then last but not least, Tom Graff. He's been providing the construction and technical oversight, and he's also a Dublin resident. So it's great having Tom so close. He oftentimes would run to the bridge for meetings, and it was just great having him so close and knowing the community and all that. But all these team members, as I mentioned, were on site from day one. It really has been amazing watching you do your work. You were always so friendly as we brought visitors to the project, and you can just tell that you have great skills and take great pride in all your work. So I'd just like to thank you for all of your contributions, and I hope you like the finished product. So we've been talking to them about some of the projects that they'll be moving to next, and there's nothing quite like this bridge. Tom, you always are welcome to say some words, for sure.
I'd just like to thank everyone. We just feel very fortunate we came out on the right side of the selection process. Thanks for going local on this. That was a big deal. So two things. One is we feel very fortunate we got a chance to work on such a bridge. These bridges don't come along very often, and the iconic bridges are just wonderful opportunity for us. These guys are second to none, so you picked the right guys. The other part of going local means that we got to go home and see our families every night for all this time, which in our business is not a given. So that's really important to us. I actually walked home for lunch one time. It was kind of a long walk. I was hungry by the time I got back to the job, but I haven't been able to walk home for lunch since 1977. So that was, it was really nice being part of something close and local and a real privilege. So thank you, Megan, and thank you very much, Dublin.
Thank you.
Do a picture?
had an
finally,
opportunity to walk the bridge just, what, two weeks ago?
Yes, we did.
And that was my first trip across the bridge, and it does look like you all have done an excellent job putting that together. So thank you for all of your hard work. We look forward to having you at the opening on March the 13th.
And then finally, thanks to City Council and the community for all the patience during construction.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, next we have a proclamation for the Complete Count Committee, and Christina has been council's representative to the committee, so she is going to step down and say a few words.
Where's my complete count committee? Come on up, guys. I'm going to read this to you guys. Yeah, come on up. Thanks for coming.
They all came in uniform, even with the cranberry-colored
all
tops and the
match.
black
Is that
pants.
census red?
Wow.
They're together,
I guess
they're
we got
all
the
on the same
memo.
page.
Well, thanks for coming. So I'm just going to read this, and we can, if there's not enough in here to explain what the complete count committee is, we'll explain it. Whereas the U.S. Constitution requires a census count every 10 years, and by Census Day, April 1, 2020, every household in America will have received an invitation to participate online, by phone, or by mail. And whereas the census provides vital information such as determining how many representatives each state gets in Congress and planning for new roads, schools, and emergency services. And whereas each year the federal government distributes more than $675 billion to states and communities based on U.S. Census Bureau data. And whereas citizens should also be aware that all information obtained by the Census Bureau is protected by law, and responses that identify respondents cannot be released to other agencies. And whereas, to avoid scams, the general public should know that Census Bureau representatives will carry valid ID badges, and the Census Bureau will not send emails or ask for financial information. And whereas Dublin City Council established a complete count committee on June 24, 2019, to ensure the most accurate and complete local census numbers. And whereas the committee includes a cross-section of trusted voices to educate and motivate residents to participate in the 2020 census, including the following members: me, Jenny Amoros, Amy Cram, Jill Kranstuber, Dr. Randy Leidy, Dr. Benjamin Patcher, Eric Richter, the Reverend Dr. Stephen Smith, Eric Starkey, and Kimberly Yoder. Now therefore, her, Chris Amoros Grooms, Mayor of the City of Dublin, do hereby thank the Complete Count Committee for their leadership and encourage every Dublin resident to participate in the 2020 census. So I'm going to present this to you. So thanks for coming. So this is the group that's going to make sure that every resident in Dublin gets counted on our census, which helps our state. Thank you for all of the work that you do. I'm enjoying thoroughly my work with you, and we meet really soon. So be there or be square. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
That brings us to the point of our agenda for citizen comments. This time is dedicated for anyone who would like to speak to something that is not on this evening's agenda. I have a sign-up sheet. Dr. Rebecca Butler is going to come forward and share with us about the Columbus State issue that is coming up on the ballot for March the 17th. Please.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, citizens, and guests in the audience, thanks for giving me a little bit of time today on behalf of Citizens for Columbus State to talk to you about issue 21, which is a bond that we have on the ballot March 17th. Before I get to the mechanics of the bond issue, I want to share a little bit about the college and its impact in Franklin County and its impact in the city of Dublin. So Columbus State serves 45,000 students annually. 75% of those students that we serve annually will live and raise families and have jobs right here in Central Ohio. In Dublin, we have almost 1,200 students who take classes at the Dublin Regional Learning Center here in Dublin, and an additional nearly 600 students who participate in College Credit Plus, which is our dual enrollment program through Dublin City Schools and through all of the K-12 system here in Central Ohio. So before, again, we get into the mechanics of issue 21, I do want to talk about the why Columbus State is choosing to put this issue on the ballot. For us, it's about an unwavering commitment to student success. We believe that we are the answer to student debt through our affordable tuition and through programs like College Credit Plus. 5 years ago, we were serving hundreds of students who opted to take college courses while they were in high school. Today, we serve over 7,000 students in Franklin County and across our service district who are electing to take college courses while they're in high school, and thereby decreasing sometimes by $20,000, $30,000 the cost of a bachelor's degree. In addition to that, and what we believe most important in this issue for us is what we're doing for the workforce. So we work with a partnership-first ethic with our community partners and our business partners. And so we're working with employers like Nationwide, JP Morgan Chase, Huntington, Accenture, State Auto, and many, many others to scale experiential learning programs for our students in advanced manufacturing, in IT, and in healthcare, so that we can ensure that the students that we're serving have relevant job experience while they're going to school, thereby increasing the talent pipeline here in Central Ohio. So now on to the mechanics of Issue 21. Issue 21 is a $300 million bond issue that equates to 0.65 mils. It also equates to a little less than $2 a month per $100,000 of property valuation. Issue 21 is a Franklin County only issue. So by law, we would be spending those proceeds only in Franklin County and not elsewhere in our service district. Issue 21 and its proceeds would go to modernizing classrooms and labs for not only the Columbus campus, but for any of our regional centers in the Franklin County area. It would go to ensuring that our students have the types of experiences in the classroom that mimic what employers need out in the field. So science labs, technology labs, and really a robust infrastructure to ensure that we are keeping that talent pipeline in Central Ohio strong, because we educate firefighters, police officers, healthcare workers, IT technicians, manufacturers every single day, and Issue 21 will help us continue to do that into the future. I'm happy to take any questions that you have at this time.
Wonderful. Any questions from council?
I had a question. So for a Dublin student of any age, what would this bond issue potentially mean here in the city of Dublin?
Yeah, certainly. So first of all, many of the residents here in Dublin who take classes at Columbus State will take them at the Columbus campus. They also take them here at the Dublin Regional Learning Center. So what we would be ensuring is that Dublin residents who take classes at Columbus State have the highest quality of physical infrastructure and technological infrastructure as they're learning, and that we can apply those industry partnerships across Franklin County and here in Dublin to, again, increase the talent pipeline and ensure that when students transfer to four-year institutions, they're doing so with the best possible experience and in relevant labs across our service district.
Is the Dublin Learning Center a partnership with OU? Is that the campus?
It is.
Is that in Franklin County or Union County?
It's in Franklin County.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing with us. And, we are excited to see your Columbus State campus here in the city of Dublin grow. And, we have a lot of employers, so we swell every day. So the talent pipeline is very important to us. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for doing it here in Dublin as well.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the time. I will leave with the clerk some fact sheets that provide some additional information.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak this evening to anything that is not on this evening's agenda? Hearing none, we will move into our agenda items. First, we have second reading, public hearing ordinance 08-20.
Authorizing the provision of certain incentives to G2O LLC to induce it to lease or purchase a facility to locate and expand its national headquarters and its associated operations and workforce, all within the city, and authorizing the execution of an economic development agreement.
Very good, thank you. Colleen is going to
Good
present us
evening.
this evening.
We have been in discussions with G2O about the relocation and expansion of their corporate headquarters in central Ohio. This company has been looking at several sites in Dublin, throughout central Ohio, and the Cleveland area. The proposal before you tonight is tied to the relocation of 150 current employees from Columbus to Dublin, the expansion of 60 new jobs, and the retention of approximately 20 jobs that are already at client sites within Dublin. So it's a total of 230 jobs that would be locating in Dublin. The company would be required to sign a 10-year lease, and in return, the proposal is a 7-year, 15% performance incentive, and it would be capped at $130,000. Should the company then extend their lease an additional 5 years, there is a bonus 4-year performance incentive, also at 15%. So total, if both are realized, it would equal a cap of $275,000 in incentives. I can answer any questions that you have, and I also have Kelly Gratz, who is the CEO of G2O, and Mike Keegan, who is the Executive Vice President and CFO. Both are here this evening. I welcome them up to the podium, and between the three of us, we can answer any questions.
Very good, thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Oh,
I'm Kelly Gratz.
I'm Mike Keegan.
very good. Well, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and why you chose Dublin?
Yeah, so a little bit about G2O. We're Central Ohio's largest privately held technology organization. I think the point of differentiation for us is around customer experience. So when we're all thinking about those applications or on your phone or on your tablet and how easy you can get from point A to point B to do whatever you want to do, we have that special secret sauce, if you will, called user experience. And so the organization is made up of experience, user experience, UX, technology, that's the application integration, as well as the data. So understanding how all of that plays together to make what we try to do on every computer and every tablet easier in order for that to happen.
Very good. Any questions from council?
I had a question/comment. So I saw you really had your roots since the 1980s, is that right? You began...
The company is quite old. It was previously known as Information Control Company, ICC. That's a brand name that many people in technology in Central Ohio know. We recently rebranded the company and changed it to G2O. So we've been in the same facility for almost 25 years, and it's time to move. And we're excited by the offer you've made us because we like Dublin and think it'd be a great place for our employees. I'm a former and maybe future resident of Dublin, and I worked here for many years, so I know the area well.
Welcome home.
Yeah, when I was out on the website, I looked at the job openings that, and I've had a technology background. I mean, 5 years ago, most of them would have barely been on the scene, and 10 years ago, they wouldn't have been on the scene. So congratulations, all that innovation, and hope that Dublin is home, because that's exactly the kind of innovation that really makes Dublin Dublin. So thank you.
We hope to grow
Thank you.
once we move in, it grow fast.
So you provide consultants off-site, is that right?
Some are offsite, like in terms of we work with clients at their facility, and then we have a development center part of our facility. So we like to think about it in terms of a very flexible model, meaning some of our clients don't have space,
Sure.
and so they can either come to ours or we can work in a co-environment. So a lot of times we do work at our place and then bring it back over there.
So from a tax standpoint, how does that work if, say, an employee is never at I call it ICC, I've known ICC for a long time, John Kratz.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If they're not present in that office, they're working at Borden downtown or something like that, how does that work?
All the numbers and the payroll numbers that Colleen and her team worked on will be people in Dublin, either at our headquarters facility or at our client sites in Dublin. People who travel back and forth, that gets a little bit complicated, but where you work is where you're taxed. So if they're at a client site, the payroll taxes are there. If they're in our building, they're in Dublin. But the numbers we've talked about are all the jobs that we're bringing to Dublin or will grow in Dublin.
For context, there's like 450 employees in total. roughly 230 would be in this office space routinely.
They answered it perfectly.
Well, thank you so much. We certainly do appreciate it. I do want to highlight that these incentives are only on new jobs. They're not on relocating jobs within the region, but they're jobs that will be new to the region. So for that, we are very thankful, and we are proud to be a good partner to the region and not incentivizing intra-region jobs, and but look forward to you growing from your new home.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to take a moment and invite public testimony if there is anyone present this evening that would like to speak with respect to this ordinance. And hearing none. Jenny, would you please call roll?
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Saludo?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Good. Introductions for Resolution 17-20.
Accepting the lowest and best bid for the 2020 sanitary sewer lining program.
I'll introduce it.
And Paul Hammersmith is going to teach us about this year's sanitary sewer lining.
Well, I'm your next most exciting item this evening.
If you don't have any dry ice, I'm not sure why we...
No dry ice involved. There will be heat, though. That's right. So on February 21st of this year, 5 bids were received and publicly opened and read by engineering staff for the 2020 sanitary sewer lining project. This project specifically provides for the maintenance and repair of 8-inch, 10-inch, and 15-inch sanitary sewer mains within Dublin's public sanitary sewer system. Scope of the work includes the labor and materials necessary to repair the deficiencies in the sanitary sewer pipe by lining the existing pipes. The locations are as shown on the exhibit on the screen. They are predominantly in the River Forest area, Muirfield Village, the Moors at Muirfield, Glenbar at Muirfield, Muirfield Square, and a few other areas, also including Muirfield Green. So really to summarize that, predominantly in Muirfield, kind of the central area, and then the River Forest neighborhood. The engineer's estimate for this work was $1.5 million, which is consistent with the funds programmed within the CIP. In situ form Technologies Incorporated submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $1,040,181. We did receive very favorable bids. The project will commence in April of this year and be complete by October 31st of this year. That might actually be sooner. We will certainly communicate with the neighborhoods to let them know this work is ongoing. Staff has thoroughly reviewed the bid submitted by In Situ Form Technologies and determined it to be a complete and acceptable cost to perform the specified work for this project. And staff recommends council approval of resolution number 1720, accepting as lowest and best the bid from In Situ Form Technologies in the amount they submitted. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Very good. Is there anyone present this evening from the general public that would like to speak with respect to this legislation?
That's
Hearing none.
surprising.
Council questions?
Well, I have a little question,
Okay.
but mainly I think it's a point of interest.
All right.
You get on the website to see, I'm trying to figure out how you line a sewer, or how you line these things.
Very carefully.
It's very interesting. And so I have a question. They put in a flexible lining,
They do.
and then it is sealed to the sides of the sewer lining, of the sewer walls. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. And you don't even have to destroy any of the yard or anything. It just goes right down through, and this machine puts it in. But I do have a question.
Okay.
There are different kinds of sealants that you use against the wall, and some are glass. There's a glass element to it. There's a resin element to it. So is there a varying level of quality of sewer lining?
Yeah, and there's actually, and when we specify a resin-based cold, it's cured in place pipe is what it's called. It's temperature activated. So how it actually goes in, a lot of times you'll hear the liner referred to as a sock, but it's actually put inside the pipe, and water actually inverts, so as water is pushed into the liner, it actually pushes it through the pipe and kind of inverts it in the lining of the pipe. And then the liner is actually kept in a refrigerator truck while this process happens. And then how the resin is activated and how the lining is cured is either through hot water or steam. That really just depends on the contractor themselves. Most of them use, and this size pipe will use hot water, larger diameters, typically steam cured. But once it reaches a certain temperature, it activates the resin and the liner becomes solid. And then now the next most important or interesting part is all these service laterals are then robotically cut out from within the pipe itself. Because you cannot forget these service laterals. That would be disastrous for a homeowner. And they're actually located prior to the liner being inserted by video inspection.
Get to cut the holes.
Right?
No, he was saying that's where I come in, I'll get to go in and I'll cut the holes out.
They did this in my neighborhood a number of years ago, and it really was, it's a fascinating technology, and it goes.
You know what,
quickly.
I wouldn't bring it up, except that it is fascinating.
It is.
It was extremely fascinating to understand how you do that without having to disturb any of the surrounding properties. What's the life cycle on something like that?
Really 25 to 50 years, really just depends on the condition itself. As long as you're in really a fairly good host pipe. The liner itself is not a one-for-one structural replacement. It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%. But it does add structural integrity to the pipe. So in this case, we're dealing with vitrified clay pipe within Muirfield and River Forest. And it'll seal the cracks, leaks, open joints, and then provide added strength. Another common question we get is, does it reduce the diameter of the pipe just slightly? The lining wall may be anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick, but it doesn't necessarily reduce. And even for that reduction in size, you get a smoother interior pipe, so actually hydraulically it's equivalent.
There's a flexibility to it, too, and so that the cracks or the influx of ice or whatever that causes them to, so it's more likely not to ever have a crack again.
Right. It'll form to the interior of the pipe itself, so if there are deflections, open joints, things like that, it'll form to that interior.
Is there a limit to a number of times you can line a pipe?
Really just once. There have been some that have done it twice. That's pretty rare. And it really depends on the liner that was in there and then the size of the pipe itself. But typically that's not done.
So at the end of the 25-year cycle and the pipe can't be relined, can it just be pulled out?
No, you'd actually then re-excavate and dig up the line.
but all new.
But 25 years is on the low side. I mean,
Okay.
estimates are really probably more in the 40 to 50-year range.
And is the intention to line all the pipes in the city
Not
eventually?
mostly all the vitrified clay lines, and we do the lining based on video inspection where we find deficiencies in the pipe itself. In the early 90s, we switched to a plastic pipe, which is less prone to cracking. The open joints has far fewer joints than vitrified clay. So really the lining you see is really for clay pipe itself, and Muirfield is predominantly all clay pipe.
Okay, thank you. Probably more information.
Very good.
than
Any other
we all needed.
questions? Hearing none, Janine, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have the alcohol waiver for Forfest. And that is not Allison, however, it is Matt. So, Matt, please.
Allison was feeling ill, so she went home early, so I'm standing in for her this
Thank you.
evening. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. In your packet, there is a request for an alcohol policy waiver from the Crawford Hoying Foundation for the upcoming Forfest event in Bridge Park, which will be held Thursday, June 4th through Saturday, June 6th. This is the third year for this event. Our internal event review committee has been working with event organizers throughout their planning process. Alcohol will again only be served in dedicated locations by trained and paid servers. Staff is recommending approval of this waiver, and we also have Miranda Sweeney from Crawford Hoying, who probably has a bit more information than I.
Very good. Did you have something you would like to add?
I can answer them.
Okay, very good. Questions from council? No? I'd like to take a moment for public testimony if anyone present would like to speak with respect to this application. Hearing none?
What's the time duration on that alcohol waiver?
So it is going to be a 6 to 11 p.m. event on each day.
6 to 11?
Very good. I move that we approve this waiver. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. We'll look forward to a fun event. Okay, next we have a report Matt's going to give us regarding the Avery Muirfield Drive Indian Run Meadow Landscape Corridor. Some findings of the Public Service Committee and their recommendations.
Yes. This is a follow-up to the most recent meeting from the Public Services Committee involving the review of the Muirfield Drive buffer plan and the Indian Run Meadows subdivision area along Avery Muirfield. I'm just going to provide a brief background with some of the specifics of the information with recommendations from the committee at the end. Certainly open for discussion with those committee members as well. Just to start off, there are requirements for this particular corridor on Avery Muirfield Drive. It's just very close to the Stream Valley Drive up to the Scottish Corners Park. In the PUD back in 1984, there were requirements for every 300-foot segment for certain screening of different types of trees. Most of those trees were planted in the 80s, which were, the Austrian pine, ash, and crabapple. Most of those trees have declined to the point of either removal or replacement and/or declining condition. The current easement that is along this corridor is a 10-foot utility easement at the rear of each of these lots. I'll get into that a little bit further here. This map, although it be hard to read, depicts the corridor. We outlined the 300-foot segments up and down the corridor there, and what you see in those colored dots are the trees. The green trees and the yellow trees are currently trees that exist in good or fair condition, and the purple dots reflect what staff would recommend in a replacement situation. I believe at last count we had about approximately 184 trees recommended for this corridor to get the appropriate screening, although the PUD only requires approximately 100 of those trees to be replaced. The median treatment requires a similar type of screening. Most of those trees were the same types of trees. Currently, the median is lacking approximately 60 or more evergreen trees, and a lot of that is due to the fact that the new engineering standards, sightline standards, don't allow us to basically plant that many trees in the median. So staff is currently planning to plant 12 evergreens or more if we can, wherever we can, along that corridor in the median strip to get it up to the standard. Some of the challenges with the properties on the edges of that corridor is obviously there are private properties. There are right-of-way limitations, so each property would be unique in the way of right-of-way options. There's currently no public landscape easements. There is no active homeowners association to be able to address the issue as a collective whole. There's been resistance to comply and efforts from staff to communicate with the residents, meeting with them on site and so forth, mainly because if you recall, that 300-foot segment required a certain number of trees, but that 300-foot segment was approximately 3 or 4 property owners, so there was a difficult and confusion trying to figure out who was responsible for exactly what number. And then certainly the cost per property, it ranges from $500 to about $9,000 to comply, and with the average being about $2,500 per property owner. You'll recall perhaps in 2019, there were some proposed options for consideration. One was to enforce the current landscape requirements. One option was to develop a planting plan and through voluminous pricing and bidding to secure some discounts for those property owners, establishing landscape easements throughout the corridor for the city to maintain the entire corridor, and then a potential grant program that was considered as well. At the last Public Services Committee meeting, there was considerable conversation around the issue, and the committee recommended these bulleted items be included in the the mitigation of the problem. One is to formally recognize this corridor as a high-profile corridor, along with potentially others. Establish a Greenway Corridor pilot program, which would involve obtaining voluntary easements from each of the property owners. There's approximately 67 households along the corridor. Establish a specific timeline so that every property owner would be in compliance relatively around the same time for efficiencies and swiftly moving to mitigate the problem. Appropriate and necessary funding options. There's a reforestation fund balance of $700,000, $700,197. Initial cost estimates for the entire corridor for the tree replacement, it's about $92,000. And the easements for the exhibits and description and legalities of that is about $50,250. Matt, I don't know if you want to speak to the reforestation fund, just to get everybody up to speed on that.
Sure, I just wanted to make everyone aware that the tree replacement fund, if you will, exists as a set of accounts inside the general fund. So that fund balance is part of the general fund balance. And the revenues are highly dependent upon future development, and therefore they're pretty unpredictable. And the same with the expenditures. They're really project-driven. So predicting the future fund balance is, with any degree of certainty, is pretty difficult. So it could increase in future years, or if there are projects, it could decrease.
Hey, Matt, so because it exists within the general fund, can those funds move back or forth, or are they, I guess, earmarked, or they must remain in that fund and be used for that fund?
They must remain in that fund and be used for that purpose according to the Dublin Code.
Thank you.
Matt, how much money is in that fund currently?
$700,000.
Well, that's a lot of money.
So that $50,000, though, that's just the paperwork and the legal description, all that, that's not paying the landowner?
No, that's not paying the landowner.
Okay, and what happens if 63 of them say okay and 4 of them say no?
It would be our recommendation that for those who did not
skip right over.
participate, then they would ultimately be required to fill in whatever gaps that we deem necessary to get the appropriate screening.
Just want to clarify, we said that it would be a voluntary, that the residents would voluntarily give their easements to the city, and if they didn't, then we would ask them to then be responsible for maintaining that part of the right-of-way that was theirs.
And what happens if they don't do either of those things?
Code enforcement
You
would
would-
step in
okay.
at that point.
And one thing that I just thought of as I was reviewing the notes on this, and maybe this is something that we have to think of as a policy, because there was no description in the development text as to whose responsibility was or would be in the future. Future development text, because we see this coming through planning and zoning all the time now, where we're requiring these huge landscape right-of-ways with quite a bit of landscaping, but we're not taking it any farther than installation. And sometimes the HOAs maintain them, but some of them aren't maintained by HOAs. Is this something that we should be thinking about as a policy and putting in some wording in development text as to future maintenance and whose responsibility? Or some of these are not on main corridors, so we don't necessarily want to put in voluntary easement because that puts the burden on us to maintain all of those voluntary easements. So I think it's just food for thought as to what we think about doing in future development.
This particular corridor is somewhat of an anomaly. But yes, typically, depending on the nature of, if it's a reserve area within a development, it will be identified as the HOA's responsibility or the city. And if it is not part of the HOA, it would be deemed as the property owner's responsibility. And hear you loud and clear on the future development text.
Yeah. And one other question I had, historically, as I looked back on this and this particular road, this was identified, and I'll look to the veteran council member on the dais here, as to whether or not this was identified as a corridor that you wanted to have this kind of a landscaped buffer. Did councils at that time identify other corridors, or did they? Can you give me a little history on that?
That was done really through planning and zoning as new subdivisions came in. And how I think council or planning and zoning looked at this. They looked at cones of vision. So if you were driving through a major thoroughfare in Dublin, and the way it was zoned, there was houses backing up to the street view, then that would be screened out mandatorily with evergreens. That's why you see Norway spruces planted as you continue down. And so with every applicant that was planned out so that we'd have this, you got to harken back to, I think some of the theory was back in the state of Washington. When you drive through the state of Washington, you see this beautiful forested area on both sides of the road. And of course, you go back 100 yards, it's clear cut and they're all gone. But you get this wonderful feeling driving through Washington that, God, this place is just, Eden. And so even though the land was under good use and high density use, we wanted to create that sense of continual green, where we ended up with all the slogans, it's greener in Dublin, and which it was, and we were immediately a tree city and met all the other requirements. So it was sort of mandated for the first 8 years that anything coming in would be screened completely out. There'd be no views on the road shed. So you just, and really good landscape architecture, I think, does that. You're going down a road, and Muirfield is considered one of the 2 best miles of roadway in the country, because when you go down it, and it's also in a state of decomposition, you might say, but you see there are houses, but they're screened off, and then you have a view of a lake, and then you go down a little farther, and you have a look to the left, there's a golf course, and there's all these sequences of really nice views that are really beautiful. Now, with that was a very clever, and I'd love to see this in our planning department again, arc and tangent layout. Arc and tangent layout allows you can also be asleep and drive your car down that road, because the arcs and the tangents are so sequentially perfect that the road just takes you through these different views and these sort of visual adventures. And with that, which was even more interesting, and our engineer can appreciate this, the road was graded in such a way that if you look at the drainage pattern, it's mounded in the middle, so you don't see headlights coming at you. And then that drainage pattern will come around and it'll loop, and it'll go down the middle, and it'll come around and loop. And it's just a grass drainage pattern, because we didn't have curb and gutters back then, or they weren't mandated for Muirfield, which saved, the city and the developers a lot of money. But it was just really good planning and engineering that allowed us to have that amenity for our people. It'd be really neat if we could move to that level of sophistication in all our affairs in planning and zoning and the city staff. It'd be great.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate that. I bring that up because I think, I guess my interest was that we suggested that we have these visual corridors, but it sounds as if that's always been kind of the history around here, to have these green corridors, and
I think the deviation on this is, throughout much of the city, there were setback requirements, 100 feet, this, that, and, different measurements in different points of the city. And, this, we didn't do a setback. It was going to be done through green screen. And I think the lesson probably there to learn is that while mounding and setbacks don't necessarily get more expensive over time, these green screens do. So I think that's probably, if you wanted to take home lesson for the Planning Commission, it's that setbacks and mounding are a more durable form of visual protection than green screens.
And, an explanation of the medium strip too, and I think it's fair over the years, was that it was planted out with those larger numbers of plants, but as you watched over the years, there was more and more curb cuts, the roads were widened and changed, and that medium strip shrunk down, and so did the number of trees. So you're absolutely right, Matt.
Matt, was there any contemplation for shrubs to help mitigate some of these planting areas, some of the larger evergreen shrubs, some of the sea green juniper, maybe some taxus, or perhaps arborvitae, some of the larger shrub material that, almost every evergreen, as it gets older, right, and it shades its lower limbs, will defoliate the bottom portion of the tree. Did we think about at all, and I didn't sit in on this committee, but was there any contemplation of what happens if we would integrate some shrubs as well that wouldn't grow so high and defoliate on the lower portions?
Yeah, that was actually part of the consideration of what trees and how many trees in what location. The last thing we want to do is take down some of those spruce that have lost some of those understory limbs. We can plant other smaller shrubs around those to create that same screening without taking that tree down. So that is absolutely the strategy.
Yeah. Originally, there was taxes out there on that island. They did pass on, and other deciduous shrubs were there at one time. They've all pretty much died out. And then we had the problem with the cone of vision for safety reasons. What you're suggesting is really great in amongst certain trees, but when you start getting into the right,
Probably not in
left-hand-
the islands, but
yeah,
perhaps in the.
turn lanes, they disappeared. Yeah, for safety reasons.
Okay. Any other questions by council? I would like to open up for public testimony. If there are anyone present this evening that would like to speak with respect to this legislation? Hearing none? Okay. So a motion to accept the recommendations of the Public Services Committee, that would start your solicitation of donation of easements? Is that?
Yes, there would be an education plan along with this, a communication plan and so forth.
Very good.
I just have one comment, too, on the part that we have discussed for a long time. That would be the east side, where we're seeing a lot of backs of the houses. We're not going to in any way follow the original plan with a mixture of deciduous trees and ornamental trees. I'm hoping that that's going to be pretty much evergreen to screen that out, right? We're going to. That's correct. I noticed you listed the original design, the quantities and everything, but when we redo this, I hope we're going to do that in such a way that we're doing that in an evergreen fashion.
The idea is to get as much of a mix as possible, but still maintaining the screening year-round.
Okay.
What's the depth of the easement?
I'm sorry?
What's the depth of the easement?
It would depend on each property. Each property would be deemed whatever appropriate to make sure it works. Some properties are V-shaped, for instance, so the distance between the actual sidewalk or the utility easement and the landscape easement might fluctuate in certain situations. So we would take into consideration each property owner's situation to get the right screening.
What do you think your minimum would be?
50 feet.
Good. That's enough to have a kind of a graduated screen, which would make it look a little nicer. Very good. Is there a motion on the floor with respect to this?
Second.
I'll move to do it. John seconds. Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Very good. That brings us to staff comments, and our general is on vacation this evening, so we hope that he's not watching us, and if you are, turn your television off. But we hope that he's having a wonderful vacation, certainly well-deserved. But in his stead is fearless Megan O'Callahan. You have staff comments for us this evening?
Yes, I do. Good evening, members of council. We have a busy couple of weeks coming up, and I would like to make the public aware of a few events that will be taking place. Tomorrow evening, March 3rd, residents are invited to join Heritage Ohio's Downtown Assessment Resource Team for a Dublin Community Visioning session. Purpose of the session is to gather public input on the future vision and direction of the historic district, and that event will be held at the Rec Center from 6 to 8 p.m. This Wednesday, March 4th, we're hosting a media preview for the pedestrian bridge at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. We will be announcing the bridge name as part of that event, so that's exciting. Next Wednesday, March 11th, the intersection of Highland Croy Road and McKittrick Road will be converted to a four-way stop. So drivers traveling on Highland Croy Road will need to be prepared to stop from that day forward. The intersection will remain open during the work, and our communications and public information staff are communicating that change in advance of the work. And we're encouraging all drivers in the area to use extra caution in the area as drivers adjust to that change in traffic control. And that four-way stop is viewed as a temporary improvement until such time as we build a roundabout in a few years. Next Thursday begins a busy 3 days of celebrating our community with the State of the City. Thursday evening, the event will be held at the Exchange at Bridge Park, beginning with a community reception from 6 to 7, followed by the State of the City presentations from 7 to 8. The pedestrian bridge opening ceremony will be Friday evening, March 13th at 7:45, followed by an illumination and the first walk. And then on Saturday, March 14th, is our annual St. Patrick's Day festivities, including the pancake breakfast and parade and grand leprechaun events. Those will be held. And we encourage our residents to engage with our social media and other communication outlets between now and that weekend for all the details about these events. There will be many staff and volunteers dedicating their time and talents to preparing for the weekend's activities and also working during the activities to ensure that traffic is safely managed and our events may safely, and our guests may safely enjoy the events. So we'd like to thank them in advance for all their work. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Council committee reports, planning and zoning, Jane? Very good. Administrative, Kathy?
Yes, thank you. I had 3 quick things. Today, you should have received via email a draft summary of our retreat report. So if you would give that a read and provide any sort of edits or comments back to myself and Jenny, we will incorporate them. We have a workshop evening, April 6th, on our agendas, and so the thought would be to use that time for some next steps and to complete the communication discussion that we did not get to during the course of the retreat. So thought is to do that on the 6th of April. And then remind folks that next Monday night is the review for the clerk of council and city manager. And then one other agenda item for the administrative review committee, and that is we have a meeting on the 30th of March, and the thought at that point would be to bring forth the early stages of the health benefits plan review to that committee, to begin the work to look at the plan outline, data, et cetera. And then the thought is from the outcome of that work that would then move into a full council discussion workshop. The timing for that is, we're beginning to, of course, go into our financial and operating and CIP review. So the thought is to do that on the 30th of March. So we'll work with staff to bring that forward at that time. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Finance, Christina?
Nothing this time.
Public services, Jane?
You pretty much heard everything when Matt gave his presentation.
Perfect, thank you. CODA, Kathy?
Nothing today, thank you.
Friendship Association?
No.
Andy, Christina? No. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, we have an executive commission meeting on the 5th, and we have the commission meeting on the 12th. So following those meetings, I will have an update. Logan, Union Champaign Regional? Nothing from Andy. US 33, Kathy, Jane?
Nope, thank you.
Arts Council, John?
We have a new exhibit starting on the 3rd. It's going to run to the 3rd of April, and it's Rod Burrick's Earth and Sky. And I want to remind you that the biggest fundraiser of all is coming up, the garden party, and that'll be on May the 1st.
May 1st. Mark your calendars. Great. Always a nice time. Board of Education, Craig? Washington Township, we see our friends from Washington Township. Jane, you have anything?
Yes, well, the fire levy, we have to talk about the fire levy. It's coming up on the March ballot.
7th.
It's a 5-year renewal. It's not new. It won't cost you any more than you've already been paying. If approved, the cost of the levy is $226 per 100,000 valuation, but the important thing to know is that it's expected to generate $17 million annually, and that's 84% of their day-to-day operating budget. So if you like what they do, which we do, please vote for the levy, because we certainly don't want to see them go without $17 million on a day-to-day basis, on an annual basis. So vote for the fire levy. And I'm sure they have signs that you can put in your front yard. Do whatever needed to pass the word. There you
Very
go.
good. Thank you. Veterans Committee, John?
Yes, Veterans Committee is bringing forward to council this evening 2 new members. And that would be Bonnie McMary, Air Force, and Mike Kehoe, Army. In accordance with Resolution 1619, I move the council accept the appointments of Bonnie and Mike to the Veterans Committee.
Second, Jenny, would you call the roll?
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Groom?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Heard the proclamation tonight. Anything further from the Complete Count Committee?
I think you've heard enough from me today.
Historic Dublin Vision Task Force, Jane?
I think Heritage Ohio is coming tomorrow to visit, so you're going to see some people walking around downtown historic Dublin. Just quickly, what they'll do is they'll do a self-guided tour at 11 o'clock, and then at noon, they have lunch with members of the stakeholder team. Then they have a guided tour by staff later in the afternoon. Dinner at the Dublin Village Tavern, so they'll get a chance to see what it really is like to be a tourist here in Dublin. And then in the evening between 6 and 8, and I really encourage anyone who might be watching to, and send out an email to remind people to show up at the Dublin Rec Center tomorrow evening to talk about the future of the historic district. The following morning, there will be breakfast, and the Heritage Ohio team will begin to just put together the results of their assessment, and we'll hear about that afterwards. So looking so forward to it.
Very good, thank you. Council Roundtable, Greg?
Only to echo the support of our friends at Washington Township. I cannot imagine a more worthy cause to be on a ballot at any time, ever. So please go out and support the people that support us.
Thank you, Christina.
I will echo the same sentiments, otherwise I'm moving on.
John?
Same thing.
Andy?
My wife is going to kill me, but can I get a yard sign?
Most visible corner in the city. Jane? Kathy?
And I just wanted to make one other quick comment and a thank you to, I had the opportunity on Saturday to be one of the judges for the Just Right tournament that was held at Kaufman High School. And this is where budding artists, writers rather, and poets come and compete as a group. This was a regional event, and I congratulate Dublin Kaufman High School for coming out on top of that event. I had the opportunity to judge some of the poetry with some other judges. We have amazing talent here, really, and so congratulate everybody and wish everybody success at the state. So it was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. I had the opportunity on the 25th of February to attend the Delaware County State of the County, and it was a really lovely presentation by Jeff Benton and his fellow commissioners up there, so thank them for the work that they do, and the state of the county is good. Also wanted to thank our economic development team for the first quarter 2020 reality check. It was very well attended. I attended that on the 27th, and they had a lot of folks there, and there was a lot of energy in the room. So thank them for putting that together. And then I had the opportunity to represent the city on behalf of all of you to the Emperor's birthday celebration from Consul General Nakagawa in Detroit. And so I went on our behalf and wished the Emperor a happy 60th birthday. I will answer for you the first question that my kids asked, and what kind of cake did they have? And the answer is none. So I found it very funny that at the Emperor's birthday party, they do not celebrate with cake. So I learned a cultural thing that day. But Consul General Nakagawa sends his greetings to all of us, and I think that he was happy that we were represented there. So with that, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we are adjourned.